This week on the Nittany Dispatch, we discuss a potential second whiteout for Penn State and preview the Penn State-Illinois game this Saturday. This week on the Nittany Dispatch. Hello and welcome to the Nittany Dispatch. I am John Sauber, Penn State beat writer at the Saturday Daily Times. She's Audrey Snyder, doing the same at The Athletic. And Audrey, everyone is just talking around the very obvious thing that now has me very confused. Why is this not an official whiteout?
You know, John, I'm sure we could find clips in the summer where you and I disagreed on what game should be the whiteout. But the
You can
one
find them from
thing,
last week.
yeah, we did discuss this last week too.
Yes.
The one thing we both agreed on was that it should not be for Illinois because nobody thought Illinois would be this good. But yet, here we are, late September. We suddenly we knew all along it was going to be a night game. Didn't know if it was 7 or 7:30, but we know it is 7:30 on NBC Saturday night. And now it's two ranked teams. And now everybody's like, yeah, so it should be the whiteout. It should have been the whiteout all along. Boy, oh boy. Why can't they have two of them, John? That's the question that I will be kind of diving into the rest of this week.
Yes. Eager to read that. You can find that along with all of Audrey's writing over at The Athletic. While you're here, don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, those 5-star ratings and reviews really help us out. If you're watching on YouTube, hit the thumbs up button down below. Hit the subscribe button, as we are now on the march to 2,000 subscribers on YouTube.
2K.
That's right. But yeah, this is, I don't know. It's all very strange to me. The whiteout energy thing. By the way, anyone who's grabbed that Bret Bielema clip, like that's just, it's unfair to Bielema. And listen, I'm not here to be a Bret Bielema apologist or anything like that by any means. But the clip of him saying that, whatever the hell that means about whiteout energy is taken way out of context. He was effusive with praise for Penn State, for James Franklin, for Andy Kotelnicki, for like a lot of things with Penn State. And I think anyone who's like kind of blindly putting that out there is doing a disservice to what was actually said. Pretty unfair from a journalism standpoint.
I don't know, John. I think there's a reason why you and I both did not retweet that.
Right. Like, and there's a reason.
Context matters.
Yes. And like, and I have a story up on SenderDaily.com where you can read all my stuff about everything Bret Bielema said verbatim. Like, I have the quotes. I just laid it out as a transcript, essentially. I did that on Monday before this even became a thing. And I have that quote in there, right? You can very clearly say, like, it's, I don't want to call it a throwaway line, but it's just like, he's clearly like confused about what whiteout energy means, seemingly like the rest of us are, right? Like, and why this isn't just like an actual whiteout. And we'll get into this later. I do want to make note of something you said about Illinois being better than we anticipated. I don't know if that's true, but we will talk about the game.
Well, in terms of a ranked opponent, I think here's the other piece of this, which I've heard it a lot from fans this week. I'm sure you have as well. It's like, am I supposed to wear white Saturday or not? Right? Like, what's the deal? Penn State has not said anything. James Franklin says Saturday post game, bring the whiteout energy. Then he shows up to his Monday news conference wearing white. Their sports information directors, most of them were wearing white. And then I had people ask me, do they all usually wear white? I'm like, no, like typically not. So like they're sending this message. Nick Dawkins said something on Monday on Twitter about telling people, like, if you're looking in your closet, you're not sure what to wear on Saturday.
He literally tweeted, wear white.
Yes, wear white. It's, to me, the way the whole thing is being handled is weird, right? Either, I was going to say something I should not say. Either go all in and make it a whiteout, or stop, right?
I know exactly what you were going to say. This is also what I'm thinking.
This whole bizarre, should we, shouldn't we? Oh, we can only have one. Maybe we don't want to overdo it. Oh, maybe it's a sponsorship thing, right? Just decide and go with it. Cause like, I'm just getting as you can tell, I'm getting very annoyed by this whole discourse. The theme is homecoming. That's the game theme. It's homecoming. They're honoring the 94 team. Wear whatever you like, because Penn State is not telling you what to wear, because this is not the whiteout, but bring your whiteout energy. I'm confused too.
Yeah, I will say stop messing around, which I'm sure is close to what you wanted to say. But yeah, like I don't fully understand this. I'm glad you were doing the reporting on this. I'm very curious to see what the story ends up looking like, because it doesn't. I don't know. There has to be some reason why they're dancing around this so much, other than they don't want to diminish like the meaning of a whiteout. Like, it's okay. Like, it's a really important season. It's the first ranked opponent. It's homecoming. It's a night game. Like, everyone can go to the game and wear one color and have a lot of fun and enjoy themselves, probably in a win. And like, it doesn't have to be, I don't know. It's all so corporate-y and weird, and I hate it so much.
So,
It's just
and
like,
here's
just wear whatever you want, like you said, but it's very clear that they want everyone to wear white, and they're just dancing around the idea of doing it.
Yeah, wear white or get off the pot was what I was going for.
Nice.
But so, and I think too, the interesting thing, and I've reported this a few years ago, if you go back and look at the origins of the whiteout and how Penn State put this together, this was in the era before social media. This was where it was literally grassroots marketing, where they changed the mannequins downtown to wear white. It was students going door to door in dorms in the dining hall, which, imagine, you cannot do this today, telling people sitting down in the dining hall, hey, wear white Saturday, right? They had fans with signs leaving the games saying, hey, remember when you come here a couple weeks, wear white. It was this whole grassroots campaign. If you wanted a second whiteout this year and you wanted Saturday to be a whiteout, Penn State could make that happen pretty easily in the era of social media, right? Like, word would be
Seems
out,
like they're going
good.
to.
I am genuinely curious to see what happens Saturday night. Like, what is it, a whiteout? Is it like a splotchy thing? I don't know. I mean, it's, again, wearing a white shirt is easy enough, which is why Penn State did this in the first place, because it's easy enough and the color pops. But yeah, the whole thing to me has just been really baffling.
My guess is it looks like a whiteout on Saturday, and then no one ever calls it a whiteout. And it's, which is just whatever. Like I said, it's all, there are a whole lot of things at play here that I think make things generally worse, and it's unfortunate. But yeah, I do think it's okay to have a second whiteout if, like, the situation warrants it, right? Like, this is a top 20 team, and we can talk about the
John,
merits of Illinois being,
what if they host a
that highly
playoff
ranked.
game? Then you have another whiteout.
Oh man, I didn't even think about that.
Like,
Probably
maybe this is part of their concern. I don't know. Like, I haven't gotten the Penn State reason on it yet, but like, I wonder if maybe that's in the back of their minds. I don't know.
I don't know, but I don't. I have gone back and forth on this for a while. Like, I don't know, maybe just wearing white to every home game becomes Penn State's thing, right? And like, all of them, you know what I mean? Like, it becomes the spectacle at night, but you can still, I don't know, whatever. I don't know. I don't want to be a part of this discussion much longer. I just want it to be over with. I hate it so much.
John and I are turning red from discussing whiteouts.
Yes.
Wear whatever you'd like. I'm sure a lot of people will wear white.
Yes, exactly. But I think it is very clear, though, that this game has more anticipation than we expected, right? There is a little more juice to it. Like I said, Illinois is ranked as the number 19 team in the country. It is far and away the best defense Penn State is playing to this point this year. West Virginia has a, by the metrics, pretty horrible one. Not Kent State bad or anything like that, but a really bad defense at West Virginia. Illinois has about a top 35-ish defense in the country. I think there's some credibility if you want to try and argue that they're top 25 on defense. And it's a real test for the offense, Andy Kotelnicki and Drew Allar. And I am curious to know, do you think this hype is warranted for this matchup?
The hype in terms of
this being a real clash of, like,
powerhouses.
Good team. Not powerhouses,
but,
obviously.
Yeah,
like,
no,
but like, you know what I mean? Like, that Illinois reaches that level of, like, they're a real threat Saturday.
I got to make sure I don't get clipped like Bret Bielema did with his quote.
I know, I'm scared to talk now.
I don't think this is a genuine big time threat for Penn State on Saturday night. I really don't. One of the things that James Franklin said, he was sure to highlight Luke Altmeyer and kind of the improvements made there. My my thought is that when this Penn State defense or Penn State offense is playing at the level that we've seen it play at through non-conference play, they are really good and they are explosive. The fact that one of the things I wrote this week on The Athletic is if you look at Penn State, how quickly they're scoring on drives, we're now having the conversation of, hey, can they actually stay on the field a little bit longer because they're scoring too quickly? Which is, again, not a conversation we've had many times around here the last couple of years. And to me, it's like we've seen that you have a quick strike offense. What I want to see from the offense on Saturday is, do you have that long, sustained, grinded out kind of clock killing drive that you're going to need to see in Big Ten play? Do they have that? If they get in a situation where they have to, maybe string together a 5, 6, 7 minute drive, I think they have it because they have the run game for it. We just haven't had to see that. So I'm curious to see that. Yeah, it's a solid test, but I don't think it's going to be like Penn State's on upset alert. I don't think it's going to be close in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, and if you remember, I bring this up all the time. The last time I said Penn State didn't have to worry about Illinois, the game went to 9 overtime, so I apologize in advance for what I'm about to say. I don't think this Illinois team is a very real threat. In fact, when we were in the press box on Saturday, we were talking about what we thought the spread would be on this game when it came out. And
what is it, Joe?
A lot of people were saying 13.5, 10.5, some like 7.5, and I said 16.5. I said about 3 possessions sounded right. It came out, it opened at 17.5. To me, that seems right. You get usually about 3 points for a massive home field advantage in college football because there's a little more impact there than in professional.
Do you get more usually if they wear white, or is it doesn't?
I don't think so. I think it's more about the whiteout energy that gives the 3 points. But no, I think that is pretty accurate. I don't think this Illinois offense is much of a threat. I asked James Franklin on Monday at his press conference. He mentioned that Luke Altmeyer had gotten better, and I think Luke Altmeyer is better. That's Illinois' quarterback, originally transferred from Mississippi. But I don't know that he's gotten like meaningfully better. So I asked James like how he's gotten better, and he talked about experience and like getting better at the little things and stuff like that. And that kind of lines up with what I've seen, right? Like I don't know that he's suddenly a massive threat. He's actually run the ball less this year, which I think is interesting. But to me, to beat this Penn State team, you're going to have to be able to score on an elite defense. And I still expect this to be an elite defense for Penn State. I do not see an Illinois offense that's going to be able to score a bunch. Frankly, from watching them, I don't know that it's an offense that's that much different from last year's. Zachary Franklin is obviously very good. Pat Bryant's very good. Altmeyer has been able to get them the ball in key situations. I will be curious to see how much that holds up on Saturday, where you have a Penn State secondary that is, I would say, far and away the best one. The Nebraska one's really good too, but I would say still take Penn State secondary over Nebraska's. I will be curious to see how they move the ball, and frankly, if they move the ball, something I don't expect them to be able to do.
And the thing from the Penn State side is still trying to figure out that lion position and life without KJ Winston with a long-term injury and what that looks like. Another big opportunity for Dejon Lane, right? Like the freshman, that's going to be part of it. I think we will see Penn State kind of get some of their depth pieces in, kind of rotate through a little bit earlier. Which to me always kind of gives us a good indicator of like how they're really feeling about a guy, if they feel really confident in getting somebody in early or not. The other important thing that came out of last week's game, which is relevant moving forward, off the top of my head, I believe it was 25 snaps, which was the highest number of snaps played by a Penn State defensive player last week, which is like nothing. So you have an extremely well-rested defense, which is massive for the rest of the season. So you kind of, if it, which I don't think they will, but if you're in a scenario where Illinois is going to run a lot of plays, like you're fine. Like you should not be worried about that. You have an insanely well-rested defense. But yeah, I guess for me, the other part of that is I want to know more about this Penn State linebacking core as we get into Big Ten play, and how do they look against the run? Because if I was Ohio State, if they gave me a lot of money and said, Audrey, you're going to Columbus, coach them up, what's your plan? I would just try to run at these guys as much as you can and see what happens, right? See if you can get Penn State's defense to try and change it up, because you and I have talked on here and we've both written about it. That linebacking core, beyond, Kobe King, and then you look at it in Tony Rojas, beyond those guys, it gets a little interesting and it gets dicey. So maybe that there's a bit of a recipe there for Bielema. Maybe we see some of the stuff we saw a few years ago where it's just come out, try to run it down your throat,
13
the extra
personnel.
linemen. Yep. Just like all kind of taking football back several decades. But maybe that's kind of part of their recipe because, this is not like a quick strike, offense by any means.
Yeah, I think the way that Illinois will have to attack these linebackers is different than how Ohio State will, right? Ohio State, Quinshon Judkins, Travion Henderson, they're two of the best running backs in the country. Also, though, they can do a lot of bootlegs, get Will Howard on the move, put those linebackers in conflict in the middle of the field with a lot of the stuff that Chip Kelly does in the passing game, which I think is the best way to attack modern linebackers who, kind of aren't up to snuff. I think King and Rojas are, like you said. It's the problem is once you get to that depth, and if you go to that depth, I like there's a world and where Penn State, when they play Ohio State, just plays Kobe King and Tony Rojas 100% of the snaps.
Yeah.
Like I wouldn't blame them for that. But yeah, I think the situation with the line position is going to be something worth monitoring. If Dejon Lane is kind of hitting that baseline of he's a starter level player, you can trust him to be out there. And that way you can have Jalen Reed closer to the line of scrimmage, moving around more. You don't have to play as many linebackers. I think that's the thing that we're going to be monitoring. I just don't think it's going to be an issue against Illinois unless Altmeyer really starts using his legs a lot more, which he hasn't to this point in the season. And then you can start stressing those guys a little bit extra with some zone reads and stuff like that. But for the time being, I think this Penn State secondary is equipped to handle Zachary Franklin and Pat Bryant in man coverage. I think AJ Harris and Jalen Kimber are both up to task on that standpoint. Harris, worth noting, was sick last week. And was, as James mentioned on Monday, and that played a role in him not starting. He made it clear that Elliott Washington had earned that as well, but like AJ Harris being sick played a role in that. But
that was my question, John. I asked the question.
Yes, that's right. I
hard-hitting question there. Yeah,
I zoned out a lot during that press conference. I'm not going to lie, but yeah, I think this defense is equipped to handle an Illinois offense that isn't great, and frankly, I think it's all going to come down to the other side of the ball then. Let's take a brief break from the podcast to discuss our friends over at Roback. Roback is a company that Audrey and I have basically endorsed long before we were actually endorsing them. And if you would like 20% off your first order of Roback, you can get it with code TND20 over at roback.com. That's TND20 as in the Nittany Dispatch. But Roback has excellent gear that I wear golfing, I wear lounging around. I say it all the time, but genuinely, most of what I wear is Roback stuff. The performance hoodies are fantastic. The hats are fantastic. I wear them when I golf. The performance polos when I golf, I wear them all the time. And Audrey, it's as good as it gets, really.
And good news, Penn State fans. I'm over here scanning Roback's list of merchandise. A lot of items available in white. So if you want to bring the whiteout energy for Saturday, Roback has you covered. Lots of options in men's and women's. I will endorse the women's gear. It is awesome. I, like John, wear it pretty frequently, whether I'm around the house, out at work. Got the quarter zip, the performance polos, the hoodies. They have it. I already own a white Roback hat, so if I was going for some whiteout energy on Saturday, that could be an option. But thanks to our friends at Roback, we hope you enjoy and check them out as well. That is TND20, as in the Nittany Dispatch 20, for your first order at Roback.
Now, back to the show.
Yeah, and we'll hear from Terry Smith on Thursday, which I want to ask a little bit more about Elliott Washington and kind of, they're very high on him and his progress. Yeah, there's a lot of talented defensive backs on this team, but I thought that was interesting because it's like, okay, AJ Harris isn't out there, but he also was not listed on the availability report, not even as questionable. So it's like, okay, why is he healthy but not starting? But here it was like he missed some practice, and so there were some other things going on. I think Penn State's offense, I mentioned earlier, like the quick strike ability, all of this. Maybe I don't ease into this one, John. I think we've been pretty complimentary of the receiving corps this season.
Yeah,
James Franklin said he has not seen enough clips, enough articles of people in general on the beat talking about the receiving corps and the job Marcus Hagans has been. Maybe we got to send him some screenshots. I don't know. I mean, I feel like
maybe
that's been the story.
Maybe tweet him some clips of us praising the wide receivers and how they've done.
Wide receivers, you've done a very nice job. Marcus Hagans, you knew you had your work cut out for it. You've done a very nice job.
I would go beyond very nice. I think they've done a very good job considering the circumstances, and we'll learn a lot about them on Saturday. But
James said as much.
I tend to think that they're gonna do well, right? Like, and I tend to think that Trey Wallace specifically will have a chance to have a really good game on Saturday and have another one of those breakout type performances that he had against West Virginia, right? Because we haven't seen a ton of them since then. He's been productive, but not nearly to that level. I think he's going to be in position Saturday to have a big game. I think if you expand like the receiving core to the pass catchers, like Tyler Warren, James has hammered this home, and I agree with him. Like, is the best tight end in the country and has played like it.
I've written as much.
Yes. But we've been complimentary of the receivers and how they've done. And in fact, I've said that I thought Julian Fleming was even better than people have been giving him credit for, and how he's contributed to this team and how often he gets open. And that's actually something I'm really going to be watching on Saturday, because I was watching the all 22 of the game against Kent State, and it didn't feel like he did anything noticeably different. It just felt like some of the things lined up, right? Like some of the, you know, when Allar gets to him in the progression, that he's there, you know, rather than being a beat off, or like, you know, any of these other issues that have maybe caused the tiniest bit of, I don't know, separation problems, right? Like, not separation from a wide receiver separation standpoint. I'm talking about from where Allar's looking, where Fleming is like on reads when he makes certain decisions. Like, I just think they've been a tick off from that standpoint. And it's led to Fleming not being as productive as I think he will ultimately be at the end of the season. But he's been excellent. He's getting open. He has excellent hands. I think probably the best hands on the team. And I would expect that Saturday is another chance for him to maybe not have, like, you know, 8 catches, 120 yards or anything like that, but like, you know, you could see him having 5 catches for 60 yards and being productive and moving the chains and being a reliable option for Allar in this offense.
Maybe he gets a touchdown in the wannabe whiteout game, right? That'd be a nice moment.
The wannabe whiteout game.
I don't know what we call it. The whiteout energy game, the not stripe out game.
I'm just going to call it the homecoming game.
That's a good call.
Where, by the way, they will be wearing their best uniforms. I know this may upset some people.
Are they? Oh, I didn't realize.
Yeah, it's homecoming. They always wear them for the Generations of Greatness for homecoming.
I missed that. What I will tell you though, quick story.
Now you're making me second guess myself. I'm like 99% sure they're wearing them.
Probably. I feel like they've done the last few years. But funny story though, the first time that they revealed their Generations of Greatness uniforms, it was in the summer several years ago. We had a press thing, and James Franklin was like, "We have." Yeah, I was right.
They're wearing them. Okay, yeah, you
Great.
made me second guess myself in a way that
I didn't know that. They so it was James Franklin was like, "We have this big reveal for you guys. Like, it's the middle of the summer. Like, it's gonna be great. You can write about it." And I'm thinking like, maybe there's like a staff change, or like there's something really juicy or notable. And like they take us over to the stadium, and it's like, "Hey guys, here are the uniforms that we're gonna wear this year." And I go, "What's different?" Like, I am not the uniform. Like, I know people go crazy about uniforms. Now, obviously, yes, I recognize the differences, but I'm looking at it and I'm like, okay, so they're wearing different socks and like there's numbers on the helmets. Cool. I thought it was like you're gonna wear pink and black or something like crazy.
They should do that too, by the way.
I mean, Johnny, I've got a lot of rants today. This being one of them. Generations of Greatness uniforms. They're cool. They're great, right? Mix it up every once in a while. Go with something super crazy. And you know what? Then sell those jerseys and sell that merchandise, because if I get one more fan ask me, "What is James Franklin wearing today and where can I buy that?" And I have to tell him, "Well, it's team issued. It's not available anywhere." Like,
it happens all the time.
To me, and again, I'm not a marketing person, but like, if you're running the collective, can't you come up with some like really good merch that people want, that your players wear, and just sell that? Like, is that an option? Well, I don't know. I don't know how licensing and all this stuff works. I know Penn State is difficult with licensing stuff, but like, to me, there is an opportunity there of like, you can print some really cool stuff that people will buy and you'll raise a lot of money, but I don't know.
And we now know that James gets some great ideas from people with excellent fashion, as we learned a few weeks ago. When I wore my my City of Brotherly Love,
a sweatshirt that John wears every time.
Yes, and every time I wear it.
And it's a fine sweatshirt.
Oh, hold on. No. We're not doing that. You're a Sixers fan. Back me up on this one.
It's a fine sweatshirt.
It's a great sweatshirt. It says the City of Brotherly Love in script in red on the white background. Like, it's an excellent hoodie. It's one of my favorite hoodies. As you can tell, I can wear a lot of Sixers.
I was gonna say, it's not the one you're wearing today. Yeah, I didn't remember what all it looked like. I just was like, it's fine.
I'll wear it next Wednesday. Remind me. Good. But I wear this a bunch. I actually probably not.
When he's not wearing a Roback hoodie, he's wearing this.
Yes, I've worn it probably like 6 times, and every time over the last like 2 years that I've worn it, he's complimented it. Well, he unveiled to us before his weekly presser a couple weeks ago that they got the idea for one of their hoodies, their Happy Valley hoodie, from that hoodie that I was wearing. So I, of course, asked for my.
Why don't they sell those, John?
That's a great question.
Like, to me,
they might. I honestly don't know.
Yeah, maybe they do. I mean, because I
think they do sell that one.
There have been so many times where it's like, there's team issued gear that only the players and coaches get, and fans are like, "Oh my gosh, this is so cool. Where do I get it?" And it's like, you can't. But it's like certain things. It's like, I know if it was available, you would be able to, and people would buy the heck out of it. So there's that. So they're wearing the Generations of Greatness uniforms.
By the way, to go back to your original point, they should keep wearing the Generations of Greatness uniforms every year for homecoming. I think that's a great idea. But also, they should pick one game a year and wear something different. Maybe it's a non-conference game, whatever, but wear something different.
And because this always comes up whiteout week, and since this is kind of like one of those, the reason that they can't wear white, do you know this, John? I think you know the answer to this probably. Why does Penn State not wear white for a whiteout?
Isn't it because they get lost in the, like, it's harder to see?
So there's a couple theories to it. That's part of it, right? It's always like your advantage is that the other team, it's difficult to see, right? Like when you're playing it in that. But the other piece to that is that the other team would have to agree to wear their home uniforms on the road, which like they're not going to agree to because they don't want to basically like
feed into it.
Feed into that atmosphere.
I do think it would be harder though. I do think it's a good idea not to wear white. And if I were an away team, I would agree to that because I do think offensively it's a little easier to lose your guys. But
it's like, and they always come in wearing, well, I guess we're gonna have to, I mentioned this, we're gonna have to watch for this now, John. When the players get off the bus on Saturday, are they wearing their all white warm-ups like they would for a whiteout?
That's a good point. That's a good point.
That's because it's the fact that James wore white to the news conference on Monday, like he's on board with it.
We'll see what he's wearing at practice tonight. That'll be, I'll make sure I get back to you on that.
It is interesting. One of the other things that's kind of been stuck in my mind this week. I'm curious what the attendance is going to be Saturday night. I think that is like last week. And again,
I almost want to get up and walk away.
No, I am not.
Like, I'm going to sit back for this one and let you go on it. This is all you.
Here's where I get my Bret Bielema clipped. Like I am not trying to take away anything here from like the fact that you had a ton of people here to watch a very terrible Kent State team. Like that is not where I'm going at on this. But what confuses me, and has confused some fine folks on Twitter as well, the fact that you need to keep in mind Penn State's attendance, right? Attendance, because I even pulled up the media guide to make sure I wouldn't butcher this. Beaver Stadium attendance is defined by including, so obviously you have the paid tickets, but you also include the press box, the suites, the bands, ushers, and other stadium personnel. So John and I count for 2 people in the crowd. The usher counts as another person, right? So Penn State, the Beaver Stadium capacity is 106,572, right? So last week's crowd, I think, was announced at like 108 something or 109 something. It's because they juice in all the other numbers, right? It's all the stadium workers. Here's my question, John. Sure, we could get numbers from the other team and say, okay, yes, you have 85 members in your band, right? Like we can figure that out. We have however many ushers in the stadium. We've credentialed this many people. How many of those credentialed people are actually here? We don't know. So there's no 100% way to get the attendance figure, but it keeps me intrigued every time. So I'm curious what they go with. And then how does that number stack up against the real whiteout against Washington later on this year? Again, these things do not matter at all, but they matter very much to me because every time I'm like, where are we getting these numbers from? But just know that it includes everyone, and John and I count in the attendance figure on Saturday and every day.
I believe they do this at all stadiums, and I just don't care.
It's like, aren't we just overthinking it, right? Like, can't we just make it, or if you're Penn State, just be like, okay, we sold out X amount number of games or whatever. I don't
I
know.
think
It's
I
all
think
things.
thinking about attendance that much is overthinking it. I think that is the overthinking, is
Listen,
putting the time and effort into thinking about
we
attendance.
all have our
They
pet
could
projects here, John.
they could
That's
put on
fine.
that scoreboard that they have 190,000 people in the stadium on Saturday, and I wouldn't bat an eyelash. I just don't care.
And I'd be
I
over there.
just
Well, but would they also put it on the ribbon board too?
that's true. No, that's
So,
only ads apparently.
so that's the yeah. So the super ribbon board is up and working. It was working last week. Wasn't supposed to be functional until Ohio State, and I guess they hit their benchmarks.
I believe the ribbon board, last I checked, was supposed to be ready for Illinois, and then, you know,
No. The escalators were Illinois. Super
hold
ribbon
on.
board was Ohio State.
You
No, I looked last week
you
because
gonna
in
make
my
me
head,
look up something I wrote?
I said, oh, like, is there something special they're going to do for Ohio State, or like, is it? I don't know. I'm not well versed on video boards, but like, I thought maybe they had something special planned. It was the escalators, which you will all apparently get to experience this. Maybe John, maybe you and I will take an escalator ride Saturday
I'm not gonna
before.
do that.
It's an escalator.
Yeah, but it's
Are you
gonna be a
scared of
long
the
day.
heights?
That's not
Scared
about
of the
being
heights,
scared of
John?
heights. That's not
It's an
about being
escalator.
it's not about the height for that one. It's about the time, and that it's gonna be like, by the time we have a chance to do that, it's gonna be like 6:30 if we do it before the game. By the time we do it after the game, it'll be like midnight. We have places to go.
I'm not going on an
Uh,
escalator late at night. I'll pregame before fans are in the stadium. I could. What if I could
maybe
say I was the first, and nobody's gonna, just like attendance? You're not gonna be able to
they
fact
have
check. I was the first person to ride the escalator in Beaver Stadium.
they've definitely tested the escalators.
Yeah, but
If
I
they're up
haven't
and
seen
running,
them test it, so like I could be the first one.
they are expected to be ready.
I'm gonna take
They
a
just
video
had
Saturday for
They just had
first.
some issues with, essentially they had needed to have new electrical rooms to run them, and so they had to
Okay.
get that all done. That's a whole process. That's what I was told back in whenever that was, late August, something like that, mid-August. But
First,
yeah,
first escalator ride in Beaver Stadium.
get it on video.
Audrey
We'll do a
Snyder.
whole podcast on the escalator, just going
I
up and
love it.
down over and over. But no, back to the game itself. If it feels like we're not taking Illinois that seriously, well, you know, I just think this is closer to a worse version of Iowa from last year, right? Where for the actual whiteout, when they win 31-0
Not a
against,
whiteout energy game.
right, when they win 31-0 against a legitimately elite defense. Now Illinois' defense is worse, but their offense is better. That's worth considering here too. But I just think it's that quality, that level of quality of an opponent. Like, I think Illinois is probably going to win 8 games this year, maybe 9. I just think Penn State remains a tier above them in the Big Ten. I think the offense is better than it was last year when they played Iowa against that elite defense. I think there's a chance that this gets maybe not out of hand, but I think that there's a world where it's halftime and everyone's like, "Oh, so much for that." You know what I mean? Like, so much for the for it being a close game against 2 ranked opponents. Because I do think that the difference between a top 10 team and a top 20 team is a lot wider than those 10 spots makes it seem, right?
Yeah.
Like, I think that the gap is pretty big. And frankly, I think Penn State's closer to like a top 6 or 7 team, and Illinois is closer to like 24th or 25th in the country at this very moment. That could change. That, like I said, there's 2 receivers, Zachary Franklin and Pat Bryant, are really good. They don't have anyone else that is over 100 or 100 receiving yards. Now, you may say, well, Penn State only has 2 guys that have at least 100 receiving yards. Illinois has played an extra game. So they are ahead from that standpoint from any counting stat, just because they have 133% more games than Penn State does, or 33% more games, I
And
should
we
say.
already spoke glowingly about the receivers, just to make that clear.
Yes, on both sides of this,
praise.
by the way. Illinois has excellent receivers, and Penn State has excellent receivers too. But I do think Illinois' depth might be challenged from that standpoint. That's why I think there is some validity to what you said about attacking Penn State with the running game. I think they're going to want to try to get Luke Altmeyer on the edge a little bit and let him run more than he has so far this season. But at the end of the day, like, I don't know if you're ready to go into predictions now, what we're going to be talking about Sunday, we can. But I just think this is an elite team against a good team, and that usually ends with the elite team winning convincingly.
Yeah, I will. Should I go first with my prediction?
Yeah.
I have Penn State winning 30-13.
Oh,
Again,
come on, Audrey.
is that what you have?
I have 31-13.
Great minds.
How is this continually happening?
How many people are going to be in attendance, John? I promise I did not predict that. But yeah, the player I think we'll be talking about Sunday is Nick Singleton. I'm going to go a little bit different there. I think that again, he has consistently through non-conference play gone back to that. Even I don't even want to say freshman year Nick Singleton because he's clearly better than that. But it's back to like this is the guy that Penn State thought they were getting. So I think he is another big day. But yeah, at 30-13 Penn State, I've now hemmed John in with his score.
So you have Illinois covering, importantly, because the spread is 17.5.
I knew that. I definitely knew that.
Yeah. Well, listen, I said last time, like I'm more aware of these things when I make these predictions.
I was not.
Penn State 17.5 point favorites. I have them covering. That was intentional. And the over under is 47.5 with the odds favoring the over a little bit right now. But I would say that is probably an accurate line, right? Like I could easily see a scenario where it's like, I don't know, 34-13, like Penn State gets an extra field goal or whatever. Like I think I'm probably staying away from that if I'm in unbiased better in this situation. Again, I've made it very clear on here. I am not in these situations, but like we are aware that people will listen to this and take advice from it.
I'm finding this out.
Yes. And we know that this happens. I can tell you by the number of texts that I get throughout the week. But I do think Penn State covers this 17.5 point spread. And I think it's more likely than not that it goes stronger in Penn State's directions than Illinois at this point. To go back to the 31-13, I think Illinois probably scores early and, maybe it's like 7-7 some point in the first quarter, and then Penn State just runs away with it. Like, I don't think this is going to be as competitive a game as it's made out to be based on the rankings of these two teams. I think it's a really good data point for us to learn about Penn State and to learn about what this offense is and how the defense deals with something that maybe we saw it struggle with a few years ago if Bielema does try that again and tries to sort of pound the rock that aggressively. As for my player we're talking about on Sunday, I hate to say it, this is going to be true post USC. It's going to be true post Ohio State and true post any playoff game. It's going to be Drew Allar.
I thought you were Oh yeah, you can pick the quarterback, I guess. Yeah.
Yes. The stipulation was not picking the quarterback for
a breakout player or something.
Yes.
True.
But yeah, I just think like he's going to be the story after this game, and we're going to find out win or loss. Frankly, like if they somehow lose this game, we're probably going to be talking about Drew Allar. That being said, I think they win. I think he has a game that puts him on the kind of national in that stratosphere where he's talked about as a Heisman candidate. Like I think that is where this is heading. I think my bold prediction that I probably should have made at the beginning of the year, but I'll just go ahead and make it now, is that I think he gets invited to New York as a Heisman candidate. I think he is going to have that level of season the rest of the way. And I think this is the first one that people are really like, oh, okay, like this guy is here. I said that he'll go at least 300 passing yards, 2 passing touchdowns and a rushing touchdowns, and a few NFL throws that have scouts salivating when he makes them, as he's done time and time again. By the way, worth noting, I'm sure you heard James say this, that it seems like they coach Drew to underthrow his deep balls rather than overthrow them, because you're at least giving your wideout a chance. You're also introducing a little bit more risk, which I don't think he talked about. But you're giving your wideout a chance at least. And anyone who's like questioning Allar's arm strength, he's throwing the ball. He threw that one to Amari Evans that was underthrown. He threw it 60 yards and he threw it like it was a balloon, like it was way up there and came back down. I think it's very clear that he can throw it on a rope probably 70 plus yards, especially if he has some momentum behind him. And that like this is it's a teaching point and something we may end up coming back to if one of these throws gets picked off at some point. You're definitely I do agree that you're giving your wideout more of a chance to make a play and make something happen. You're also introducing more risk. I tend to be on the side of like increasing your probabilities and banking on your guys rather than and taking that risk rather than be like throw it where only your guy can get it. That is clear. And the thoughts I have about fourth downs when you should kick field goals and everything.
Field goals, never.
Yes, like it's I appreciate the aggressiveness of the little bit of an underthrow to try and give yourself more options to find success.
I do want to add to Saturday between the generations of greatness, the whiteout energy, Penn State homecoming as well. Penn State is honoring the 1994 team. That I'm not sure if I'm assuming halftime or if it's going to be between quarters. Not totally sure. But they're getting honored, and I've talked with some of those guys this week, and I'll have a story up by the end of the week on The Athletic about it. It's been super fun to kind of, again, in 94, I have no recollection of any of this.
Me either, because I wasn't born.
You and Drew Allar and most of the team were not born.
The entire team.
It was
the entire team wasn't born in 2000, I think, at this point.
Fair. I'm not a math person. The funny thing was Drew Allar was asked this week on Zoom about the 94 team, if he knows anything like about them and about the history. And he did say that he has a little bit of a relationship with Kerry Collins, because Kerry Collins was the special guest ahead of the Peach Bowl last year. And he said that he and Kerry had a little bit of a conversation before the game. So that's, one layer to it. But then he was asked, like, well, what do you know about this team in that season? And Allar goes, well, I think they won the Big Ten and they maybe were national champs, but then there was some kind of controversy, but I'm not really sure because I wasn't alive then. And that's kind of like the perfect, in a way, a perfect summation of that program, that era, but also for like the younger audience, right? If you're a college student now at Penn State, it's been 30 years for this team, which is something that a lot of those guys talking to them this week, they're like, oh my gosh, it's 30 years. Like, that's really kind of crazy. But in a way, it's kind of interesting to maybe reintroduce this particular group to the younger fan base, and just kind of trying to bridge those gaps between, maybe the most or one of the most beloved Penn State teams all time. One of the things I found really interesting in my reporting so far, I talked with Marco Rivera, and after getting all of my obligatory Packers questions out of the way, as one does with every former Nittany Lion, one of the things he said to me was that, yeah, he has somewhere, he's not even sure where, but he has that championship ring from that season, and the rings all say number 1 on them, and that for him, 30 years still has not been enough time. And he's like, I'll never get over the fact that we never got our crack at Nebraska. And that, here you look at this high-powered Penn State offense, and 30 years later, like, here's a program that still says, man, we could have been the national champions, at least been co-champions, right? Also, I think it's a little bit interesting, John, that Penn State has never tried to like claim that they were national champs in 94.
There's still time.
Well, maybe that's the point of Saturday, right? Maybe it's like, hey guys,
that would be incredible if they introduced them as the 1994 national champions. I will give Penn State a lot of credit for that.
If you want like whiteout energy and you want people to lose their minds, just go ahead and do that.
Yeah,
introduce them as national champs.
Mean, it was a weird time where the national championship wasn't determined on the field. Like, it just wasn't.
They were, the New York Times declared them as national champs. So my employer declared them national champs. So therefore, I kind of declared them as national champs. Therefore, I can put in my story this week that they were national champs. But no, it's just been really interesting. And like, those guys all said, they're having a reception Friday night. And they said, the farther removed you get from these special teams, like how fun that's going to be just to get those guys, or most of them, in the same room for one night, because that does not happen very often anymore. So I hope that the TV broadcast, I hope NBC picks up some of that. If not, I'm sure I'll be tweeting about it. I'm sure you will be too. We'll probably be writing about that along with the receiving core, along with the whiteout energy, along with whatever else happens on Saturday. But that's probably a good spot to leave it, you think, John?
Yeah, and just one more note that I was born a month after that Rose Bowl. So just
so you're saying you weren't there?
To age you a little bit and make you feel a little worse this evening. But you are right. That's a good place to leave it. You can find all of my coverage, as Audrey mentioned, over at SenderDaily.com. You can find hers over at The Athletic. We will have plenty of it. I went more in depth with my preview. Audrey will be doing the same this week. I think mine will be published Thursday morning, so I would assume by the time you're listening to this, there's a decent chance it's out on SenderDaily.com, and there's a decent chance Audrey's is out as well over at The Athletic. You can find her on Twitter at OddSnyder4, where she will be tweeting those stories, and you can find me at
maybe
John
an escalator ride.
Yes, maybe an escalator ride. You can find me at John Sauber on Twitter. Don't forget to leave those 5-star ratings and reviews over at Apple Podcasts. And if you're watching on YouTube, hit the thumbs up button down below, hit the subscribe button. We really appreciate it. We will be back Sunday morning, Sunday at 3 a.m. probably. I don't
the
even
reality of a night game just hit me. Yeah, that's oh, this is going to be bad. We will be
back at Sunday morning, whether it's 3 a.m. or 9 a.m. It will technically be Sunday.
It'll be in your feeds by the time you all wake up well rested from your whiteout energy on Sunday. It'll be in your feeds.
Well, I'm probably still sleeping for a long time. But that'll do it for this episode. Until then, thank you for tuning in. Have a great day.